She won an Oscar. She starred in one of the greatest movies ever made. She was loved by millions of people around the world. But behind all of that fame and all of those bright lights, Diane Keaton was living a life full of pain, secret struggles, heartbreak, and moments that nearly broke her completely. And the most surprising part? She never hid from any of it. She talked about it. She opened up in a way that most Hollywood stars never dare to do. Today, we're going to take you deep into the real life of Diane Keaton, the UPS that made her a legend, the downs that nearly destroyed her, and the truth about the woman behind the iconic wide-brimmed hats and the unforgettable laugh. Stay with us, because this story is unlike anything you have ever heard about her before. Let us start at the very beginning, because Diane Keaton's story does not start on a red carpet. It starts in a small house in Los Angeles, in a family that had very little money, but an enormous amount of heart. Diane was born on January 5, 1946, and from the very first years of her life, she was watching the world like an artist. Her mother, Dorothy, was a woman who never made it to the big stage herself, but she carried the soul of a performer inside her. Dorothy had once been crowned Mrs. Highland Park in 1955, and when little Diane watched her mother stand proudly on that stage, something lit up inside of her, a small flame that would never go out. Dorothy did not just inspire her daughter from a distance either. She wrote everything down, every single thing. 85 journals filled with photos, clippings, and memories of Diane's life. When Dorothy passed away in 2008, Diane discovered all of those journals and was completely overwhelmed. That treasure of love became the foundation of Diane's own memoir, a daughter who had been seen her entire life, written down by the one person who never stopped believing in her. But life at home was not all warmth and inspiration. Diane's father, Jack, was a construction engineer who worked hard and said very little. He was calm and responsible on the outside, but on the inside, he was carrying a heavy weight. And Diane would not learn the truth about that weight until it was almost too late. On the way home from a hospital visit near the end of his life, Jack whispered something to Diane that stopped her cold. He told her that he had always hated his work, that he had spent his whole life doing something that made him miserable, that he wished he had taken more risks. Those words hit Diane like a wave. She never forgot them. In fact, those words from her quiet, steady father became one of the most powerful forces in her entire career. She promised herself she would never live a life full of regret. She would take the risks. She would follow the strange and difficult path. And she did exactly that. Growing up, the family did not have much money. While other girls at school were buying new clothes, Diane was shopping at thrift stores with her mother. But here is the thing about Diane Keaton that makes her so special. She never let those moments make her feel small. Instead, she turned them into something beautiful. Her mother would find second-hand clothing and transform them on an old sewing machine into something completely unique. That early lesson in creativity, in making something wonderful out of almost nothing, would shape Diane's legendary fashion sense for the rest of her life. Those oversized suits, those wide hats, that perfectly layered look that everyone tried to copy. It all started in a tiny house with a sewing machine and a mother who refused to give up. By the time Diane was a teenager, it was completely clear that she was not like the other girls. She was not interested in being the prettiest or the most popular. She was interested in performing. At Santa Ana High School, she took on roles that most students would never dare to attempt. She played Blanche DuBois in a school production of A Streetcar Named Desire, a deeply complex and emotionally demanding character. And when the applause came at the end of that performance, Diane felt something she had never felt before. It was not just joy. It was a feeling of being completely, totally alive. Like all the pieces of her had finally come together in one place. From that moment, there was no turning back. But Diane's early journey into the professional world was not easy. Not at all. When she landed a role in the Broadway musical Hair in 1968, she thought she had finally made it. She was 22 years old, full of excitement, and ready to show the world what she could do. And then the pressure hit. The producers told her she needed to lose 10 pounds. She was 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed 139 pounds. and they told her she was too heavy. That kind of cruelty leaves a mark. And for Diane, it left a very deep one. She learned from another actress how to make herself sick after eating. What started as something she thought she could control quickly became a nightmare that lasted for 5 years. From 1968 to 1973, Diane Keaton secretly fought a battle with bulimia that nobody around her even knew was happening. She was vomiting thousands of calories every single day. Her teeth were deteriorating. Her body was struggling, and she was completely alone with it. She performed on stage with a smile while quietly falling apart behind closed doors. It was only through daily therapy that she slowly found her way back. And the day she decided she no longer wanted to live that way was, in her own words, the day her life truly changed. And yet, right in the middle of that painful secret battle, something incredible was also happening. In 1971, Diane Keaton walked into a casting party in New York, nervous and excited, and her whole world was about to shift. She had been cast in a film called The Godfather, a film that nobody was really sure would even be good. And at that party, she met Al Pacino. He was 31 years old, passionate, electric, and impossible to ignore. He told stories with his whole body, gesturing and laughing and pulling everyone into his world. Diane watched him from across the room and felt something she could not quite name, something that would stay with her for the next 15 years and honestly, in some quiet corner of her heart, for the rest of her life. Their romance did not happen overnight. It was slow and careful, the way real love sometimes grows. It was not until they reunited on the set of The Godfather Part 2 in 1970 for that everything changed. One evening in Manhattan, after a long day of filming, Al looked at Diane differently. He told her she was special, not in a rehearsed Hollywood way, in a real way. And from that moment, they quietly began building something together. They were not a glamorous couple photographed at parties. They were two artists finding each other in the simple moments. Long evenings at Diane's apartment, walks along the beach, books traded back and forth, conversations that lasted until sunrise. Diane loved the way Al gave everything he had to his work. She loved his fire and his freedom. But she also sensed very early on that his freedom was something that might one day cost her everything. And it did. Because as deeply as Al Pacino loved Diane Keaton, he could never give her the one thing she truly wanted: a real commitment, a home, a family built together. Diane was not asking for the world. She just wanted to know that she was his. And Al, for all his brilliance and passion, could not say yes. She would bring up the future, and he would grow silent. She would ask about marriage, and he would look at her with eyes full of pain, but no words. She stood by him through everything, including the years when his $50 million fortune nearly disappeared due to reckless spending and a dishonest accountant. She lent him money quietly. She encouraged him when he doubted himself. She reminded him of his greatness when he had forgotten it. And still, he could not cross that final line for her. In 1989, while Al was filming in Rome, Diane received a handwritten letter from him. In that letter, he wrote that he loved her forever. She read it over and over again, holding onto those words like a lifeline. But deep down, she understood the painful truth. His forever was the forever of an artist, beautiful and real, but not the kind that comes with a ring and a promise. It was more like a poem that never gets finished. In 1990, Diane finally made the hardest decision of her life. She looked Al in the eyes and told him simply, "Either we get married or this is over." The silence that followed told her everything. She walked out into the cold New York night and left behind the dream she had carried for 15 years. She never hated him for it. She never could. Years later, she still kept a photo of him in a special corner of her home. She would look at it sometimes with a soft smile, sometimes with eyes that carried the weight of what could have been. But here is what makes Diane Keaton's story so powerful. She did not fall apart. She rebuilt. She took all of that love and longing and turned it into a life that was completely, beautifully her own. In the early 2000s, she adopted 2 children, a daughter named Dexter and a son named Duke. She became a mother on her own terms, the same way she had done everything else in her life. On her own terms. She said motherhood gave her a kind of joy and peace that even her greatest performances never could. A wholeness that she had been searching for through all those years and all those roles and all those complicated loves. And her career, during all of this, remarkable, does not even begin to cover it. The Godfather made her a name. Annie Hall, in 1977, made her a legend. Woody Allen wrote that character specifically for her, inspired by the real Diane. The awkward brilliance, the layered outfits, the nervous laugh that somehow made everyone around her feel completely comfortable. That film won her the Academy Award for Best Actress and created a fashion movement that designers are still referencing today. She kept going. She kept challenging herself. She played a woman living a dangerous double life in Looking for Mr. Goodbar. She made audiences laugh and cry in Baby Boom. She returned in 2018's book club and proved at 72 years old that she still had the kind of screen presence that most actors spend their whole careers chasing. Diane Keaton lived a life that most people would not have survived. She battled an eating disorder in secret for years. She loved deeply and lost. She built a family from scratch at an age when most people have stopped dreaming of new beginnings. She turned thrift store clothing into a fashion revolution. She turned her father's regret into her own courage. She turned heartbreak into art. And through all of it, she never pretended to be anyone other than exactly who she was. That laugh that a high school boy once mocked her for, it became her signature. The thing people remember most warmly about her. The thing that made her real in a world full of people performing perfection. Diane Keaton was not just a great actress. She was proof that a real, full, messy, beautiful life, lived honestly, is the greatest performance of all. And her story will stay with audiences for as long as movies are watched and old Hollywood memories are treasured. So tell us, which part of Diane Keaton's story moved you the most? Was it her secret battle that she fought alone? Her heartbreak with Al Pacino? Or the way she built her own happiness from scratch? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe so you never miss another story like this one.